All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Um, I trust we are all doing well. It's Elvis, Kwabena, Nkrumah, and I'm a Zindi ambassador from Ghana. So today we are having another conversation about AI, right? We want to talk about what our mission is as Zindi. We are Africa's largest data science community. And today we want to talk about AI for students. What should we learn? What matters? Right? And how do we prepare ourselves for an AI-driven labor market? Before we start, I want us to share the link with people you know they've registered so that they cannot miss today's session. Because today we are having a very great speaker who is going to be handling the session with us. So please kindly do well to share the link, post it on your WhatsApp status, let them know that we are starting. All right, and that the session has started. So kindly take 2 minutes to do that, and then we'll begin our conversation. All right, so we kick start. I think I've seen the others also join while we are starting. Good afternoon to anyone who has just joined recently, and you are welcome to today's talk. Today, our topic is AI for students: what to learn, what to ignore, and what actually matters. Our speaker today is a PhD candidate at Princeton University. She has large experience about on not just working with AI, but I would say playing around with AI, and then the future of AI in a labor or in our labor market. Her name is Melissa Carleton. Miss Melissa, please will you introduce yourself again so that we get to know you more?
Yes, thank you so much for the kind introduction, Elvis. As you said, I just finished my degree requirements for my PhD in economics at Princeton University. I'll officially receive the degree at the end of March. I have industry experience in 2025. I worked at a range of companies. I was a contractor at Scale AI, training the AI models. I worked at Mutual of Omaha as a data scientist, and I also worked for a stealth startup. And the great thing about these three different opportunities is I got very different perspectives and exposure to how AI is used, how the organization conceptualizes AI. I also do some research and writing on AI in the labor market. I've written several articles for The Honest Economist where I've explained, like, will we need a UBI someday, for instance, if AI ends up really, really disrupting the labor market. And those are my interests, and I can't wait to share more with you about how I think about AI.
All right. Thank you very much for the great introduction. We'll move straight to our questions for today, our questions for our conversation. I want to start from the basics. The first part of our conversation is AI for students, what to learn, what to ignore, and what actually matters. Now, for we in Ghana or in part of the world, Africa, would say that AI is everywhere. Please permit me to turn off my video because of network. Right. So we'll say AI is everywhere, right? But from your
Mm.
perspective, what is genuinely transformative and what is overhyped?
Yes, that is a great question. One thing I would say is that anything that is able to accomplish a task that was previously accomplished in minutes or hours, but it can now do in seconds, that is genuinely transformative. So I've done a lot of work in data science, and it used to take me 15 minutes to plot a simple chart of an equation, maybe add some colors, add a color gradient. That might even take me more than 15 minutes. But now with AI, I can tell it what I want the chart to look like. It can do it in seconds. So using AI to code, that is genuinely transformative. I would also say anything like say Claude Code extension in VS or no, Gemini extension in VS Code. So this is where you can take a folder. If you want to rename all your folders, change the directories, write a little README file explaining your code, saying where all the folders are. Instead of taking an hour to relabel everything, you can literally tell the AI agent, hey, show me the structure of my folders and rename all these things. So basically anything where it compresses the time scale. What's overhyped is there's a lot of media mentions about the newest release of, say, ChatGPT or Claude or Gemini, and some of those releases can't are I would say they're still good to pay attention to, but the difference between GPT-4 and GPT-5 and their different personalities and all that, yeah, that stuff can be fun to follow, but that's not going to be as transformative as the fact that you can now make a histogram in 15 seconds.
Wow, wow. That's great. That's great. So as students, one of or most of our burdens is that we feel anxious about AI replacing our jobs. So people, I'm a teaching assistant at the Department of Statistics, and when my students come, especially the first years or the freshmen, some of them even
Mhm,
question the paths they've chosen. They are like they feel that people are saying AI will replacing jobs. Based on
mhm.
economic evidence, what do you think, or how should we realistically think about this conversation of AI replacing jobs?
Yes, I really love that question as well, because one thing that students should do is come up with an action plan. I would say that the influence of AI in the labor market, and it's not only AI, there are several other geopolitical factors as well, such as tariffs, supply chains. AI is a big contributing factor to what we're seeing in the labor market in the US, in several other countries. There really is a shortage of entry-level roles. Jobs are not growing. But what students shouldn't do is then panic and then say, oh, I don't know what to do next. As I said, because AI genuinely compresses a timeline, firms for that hire for those roles are less likely to hire, say, entry-level data scientists. Now that even a senior data scientist can use AI to do what a junior data scientist would do. But the good news is that students can create their own opportunities by networking. AI, what I would say is that AI actually makes human to human contact all the more important. And the students who realize this early will definitely be ahead in the labor market, will create opportunities for themselves that maybe if there weren't this AI revolution and students had an easier time finding a job, they wouldn't get to explore as much or put as much effort into the human to human contact. I certainly had no incentive to when I was in college. I just kind of applied and I trust that I would get a job. In terms of what I'm saying about like how do you go about doing this, well, I would say reach out to people on LinkedIn. And the most important thing is to get over your fear and hesitation of reaching out, putting yourself out there. The worst that someone can do is say no. The worst someone can do is give you the silent treatment or be silent. Very rarely will they think, oh, that person's so annoying. But the point of all this is that if you start, say, your first year of college and once a week or even once a month, you make it a goal to talk to one new person in a field you're interested in and think about them as a potential referral for a job. Or if they're a startup founder, they can even create a job for you once they realize how valuable your work is if you've been working with them sometime. So then by the time you graduate, you might have a bank of literally 200 people who can give you referrals, who can provide opportunities. And that is really a strategy that I would follow, other than I would still learn AI tools, but I think that that is better than learning one AI tool every week. So that is my perspective on how AI is reshaping the labor market and an action step that students can take.
Wow, wow. So speaking to people who are interested in their field once a week, that's great, great advice, and Miss Melissa. Now I want to find out that what are people misunderstanding about how AI systems are actually built and deployed? And people think these AI things are magic. Yeah. Um,
Mhm.
how should we really understand these things? And then what are some things we want to highlight when it comes to how these AI systems are actually built and deployed?
Yeah, so I would say two things regarding that. The first thing is that AI is not magic. It can't literally do everything. AI is not at the point yet where it can really run code itself. If you tell it what to do, it can give you code. And all the models that I run using code that AI had generated, they were all because I have an expert level understanding of economics at the PhD level. If someone didn't have that understanding, they wouldn't be able to come up with these models. So it's not as if AI can do just about anything you want. You have to have the right expertise to be able to prompt it in the way that you want or prompt it correctly to get a certain output. The second thing that people misunderstand is that AI is absolutely everywhere. I would say that for some organizations, AI is much slower to proliferate into the organization. And so a lot of, say, finance firms, they're not going to be as fast as tech firms. I have some friends in finance, and they say that their firms have not really adopted AI yet, and they don't even use tools like ChatGPT because every website they go onto, it has to be so regulated by the firm. And then in finance, they'll have like a giant company discussion before they actually adopt these. And so the one thing people misunderstand is they think AI is transforming just absolutely everything. And I would say that tech is definitely the place, say Silicon Valley, that's the place where people are really staying on top of the AI tools. But everywhere else, it seems to kind of trickle in fairly slowly. That doesn't mean it won't make an impact, but it's not maybe the transformative impact that we think.
Wow, wow, wow. So we are learning a lot from the beginning of this conversation, even at this just beginning. We want to now find out the first part of our topic. That's what students to learn. So at this point, we want to start by a first question on this segment. That if you, Miss Melissa, were starting university or college today, what would you prioritize learning over the next 3 to 4 years?
Mm. Yeah, that is a really fascinating question. It's fascinating to go back in time that way. I would say that when I was in college, I started college in 2018, and it was very, very different than it is today. So one thing that I would prioritize that just wasn't even on my radar in 2018 was the networking. I had thought that in 2018, if I work hard at my chosen career, follow all the steps, all of that, I would get where I want to go. And that was true. I did end up getting into Princeton's economics PhD program. My backup in case I didn't accomplish that was to get into quantitative finance, but I did accomplish that, so I didn't need to. Although there was no effort that I put into really getting, I was, always an attentive student. I talked to my professors a lot, but I essentially put zero effort into networking. So, as I said earlier, that is a certain skill, that is a core skill that I would learn how to do. As I've said, it's really about getting over your fears of cold messaging, and you have to view it as almost kind of a game where your goal is you need a job at the end of the day that makes a living, ideally is enjoyable, and you need to be out there for yourself and think, okay, what maximizes my probability? And you also want to be an interesting, kind person and all of that, which I trust you all are. So that's one. Two is leveraging the AI tools in a production ready way. So, how do you leverage AI tools in order to, say, ship something faster? Like what I mentioned before about the VS Code, the Gemini extension in VS Code, staying on top of tools like that, maybe devoting 1 or 2 hours every week or even every couple weeks to learn some of these tools and just experiment with them on your own devices. Those are definitely skills that I would strongly recommend investing in that just weren't really a thing when I was in college.
Wow, wow. So 1 week for Gemini or 1 week learning about these AI tools and then networking. Thank you so much for emphasizing on that. I think it's very helpful for us in our world where now networking is something we need to take really seriously, even as college students. Now, beyond coding, beyond the AI models, machine learning, what complementary skills are becoming more valuable in an AI-driven economy?
Yes, I mean, one thing that I would say would be really understanding the use cases for AI. And so you can know all the tools, the machine learning, but what's an example of a process in an organization that could be made more efficient with AI? Like, let's say, for instance, people are not syncing files. Well, there are certain tools that can be plugged into GitHub that allow you to do that better if you're ever collaborating. I would say that one skill that I think is very key is personal branding. And this skill is something that I've learned about a lot in 2025. That's essentially what do people think of when what do people associate with you? And so I would say that my personal brand, which I'm also working on developing more and more later this month, now that I've graduated, is that I talk about AI in the labor market. The story is coherent because I'm an economics PhD at Princeton, and a lot of students on, say, their LinkedIn profile, well, they're not distinguished from other students. They could be really brilliant. I even see peers who are doing economics PhDs at some of the top universities in the US. And these people all had to pass rigorous qualification processes and all of that, but there's nothing that distinguishes one from the other online. And so your online presence is so key. The way that you can build that presence is to have a headline instead of saying some generic things such as student or aspiring whatever. You can say who you help and what you actually do. Then posting on LinkedIn, you want your post to be useful and informative and speak to an audience and also position you as an authority and a leader. Some students make accounts that go viral by posting kind of more personal posts or witty posts or even sharing their insecurities. But I would strongly recommend staying very professional and telling people why they should take you seriously on a particular topic. You want to be like some of these vulnerable posts, yeah, they might get a lot of likes and comments, But if you want to be viewed as a leader and someone that people should follow, it's really important to brand yourself that way. And as I see on LinkedIn, I see these really brilliant students not leveraging this powerful tool. And one caveat is certain industries like finance might not like you posting on LinkedIn so much, but overall, I would strongly recommend posting on LinkedIn, really paying attention to your brand because now with AI bots, it can be harder and harder to cut through the noise and see what matters. So that's what I would say.
Thank you for your emphasis on personal branding. I don't know, but for students in our part of the world, we go to LinkedIn, people just post their pictures and they write, have a nice week. They are always talking about what is happening. It seems like it becomes like social media influencing. So please thank you for emphasizing on personal branding, how we show ourselves outside. I think for we at Zindi, we do well by helping data scientists in terms of hackathons and competitions, help them develop their skills so they can showcase this on LinkedIn and also boost their personal profile. Now, I want to talk about your experience at Scale AI. We know you have some experience training AI models when you were working there. And what skills separated strong contributors from average ones?
Yes. So I would say what separated the strong contributors, and I got this because I was part of a Slack channel where the admins or the leaders and the project managers, that's what they were called, they would post which contributors were doing really well, not the exact people, but the qualities they had, and they would suggest areas of improvement. So some of the things that they said were going well is when people followed the prompt instructions. So when you prompt the AI as an individual contributor, Scale AI really wanted you to have a ground truth final answer. And so the answer to a question would have to be a number like 2 or x plus 5 or some closed form thing. Or maybe if this inequality holds, then this is true. Then if this inequality holds, then this other thing is true. It couldn't be some very open-ended thing. There could be different ways of getting there in terms of a mathematical proof, but the reason they wanted a ground truth final answer is it makes it easier to train the AI. So following those instructions right away, it was actually really surprising how many people didn't follow the instructions, and these were master's and PhD students and postdocs. That's one thing that separated the outstanding contributors. Also, the novelty of the problem. Scale AI had a scoring system where on 1 to 6, it would score how frontier it was. And they wanted people to get closer to 6. No one actually got problems that were 6, but most people who did well would at least get above a 3. And some people would put in problems that would be scored like 2, and that wasn't very good. So I would say just really paying attention to what they want and then following all of the instructions, which is so surprising how rare that was. That really makes contributors stand out. They wanted to extend my offer actually, but I had to
Really?
quit to different thing.
Oh, okay. Okay. So we want to find out. Few months ago, Elon was saying that students should rather prioritize mathematics, learning mathematics and physics, right, as the core concepts behind these AI things, as more to chewing more and learning more about coding, right? We want to find out how important is math depth, like our mathematical strength versus practical implementation skills for most students. What should we really focus on?
Yes, what I say to that is that a certain baseline mathematical knowledge is I wouldn't say essential because there are people who are successful without it, but almost essential. So I would strongly recommend taking courses like multivariable calculus and linear algebra. I was a math major in college, so I took a lot of advanced math courses. I would say in my situation, that definitely helped with my logical reasoning skills. And even if I don't directly use all these fancy formulas, that still was a big benefit. However, I would only go further in math if you genuinely like math as a subject, not necessarily to chase this AI hype. In terms of being future ready, I don't necessarily think like taking all these advanced math courses is the solution. I would say that taking the basics, as I said, then there are some courses, like I would definitely take Intro to Computer Science. I would say that computer science actually becomes, yeah, it doesn't lead to an instant job guarantee in the way it did, but it does become valuable in terms of understanding the AI tools. I would take also a basic econ course. And so, really, some of the basics and intro courses across the core subjects, but then beyond the intro courses, definitely focusing on practical applications through internships, through projects is more important. And then with your education, really, there's something to be said for doing what you genuinely like. Like after you learn some of these basics, go with whatever your heart says. And that definitely makes for a more happier experience because now with AI, things are becoming more of an intense competition between students. And I think there's definitely potential for burnout if students don't pace themselves, if they don't stop and think, what do they want to do versus what are they trying to do to obtain something. I think as long as you're covering the core foundational skills, then the rest will just flow naturally if you're doing what you enjoy.
Hello, Miss Melissa. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, I think at a point we lost you, getting to the latter end.
Oh, okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes, please.
Yeah. So did you get the part where I said that students should focus on what they enjoy?
Yes, please. Yeah.
Yeah, so essentially the summary of what I had said in case it wasn't recorded or picked up is that there are certain foundational courses such as the core math, intro to computer science, intro to economics that can be very beneficial in today's world. But beyond that, I wouldn't overhype any particular major. I would focus really on what students enjoy because now that the world has gotten so competitive, I think students can tend to lose sight of that. And it's important not to burn out and to always maintain enthusiasm.
Wow. Wow. Thank you. Great insight shared on that. Now, at the next part of our conversation, we want to tackle the question on what to ignore. So, I want to find out what AI trends you think students are overreacting to right now.
Yes, I mean, I don't know what it's like in Africa, whether there are many more trends that students are reacting to relative to, say, North America. But what I would say is that what I see in the US is it's not really students overreacting to anything. It's more like there are just so many possibilities in front of them that they don't know what to do. And so, because it can just seem so overwhelming, they often take no action. And it's like the question becomes then how do you sort through all of the trends? As I said previously, there are some AI tools that are genuinely beneficial. I would say that your domain knowledge is ultimately going to come first. You don't need to pay attention to every new tool, every new model release. It's also very field specific. So I would even do a Google search of in your chosen field, what AI tools are people using right now? Look at some of the tech organizations to see what people are using. Then think about how you could use an AI tool to genuinely make a process faster. You don't need to design a website with the very latest AI tool if you have an older AI tool that works well enough. And that's what I would say going back to what actually helps me complete my work faster or better or more creatively.
All right. So, we want to now ask, are there skills or certification students are choosing that may not be doable long term?
Yeah, any skills that are not durable long term. Um, I think this area can really trip up students because it's very hard to say what skills are not durable long term because we can't predict the future. One thing that I would say is very unfortunate in the job application process for data science roles is that many of these companies still make students code really well, like pass a coding test. And they'll have to remember that this was read underscore CSV versus CSV underscore read. So these are like tiny little syntax things that used to matter in the past when people were coding by hand. Um, but now AI can do that. So coding to that level of precision, in my opinion, is irrelevant, even though you want to understand the basic structure of the code. So how do you still prepare for, say, some of these job interviews where the interview process itself is a little bit outdated, and balance all of that? I would say only only invest in these more outdated things if you genuinely want a job in that area. So let's say this company is implementing this new interview process. Then you might want to spend a couple weeks leading up to the interview practicing coding by hand, timing yourself, doing little exercises on Hacker Rank or those platforms where you can get practice. But I wouldn't practice those, say, 3 years in advance of when you're going to be applying for these jobs, because by then companies might have modernized their hiring processes to reflect reality a little bit better.
All right, thank you. Now, finally, on this section, we want to find out how can students avoid getting distracted by every new AI tool that goes viral? So, how do we avoid that distraction? Today, there's Borium AI, there's another AI which helps you make your research better. There's like almost there's
Mhm.
something being built for a particular task. Now, there are AIs which do slides, presentations, and other things. So, as students, how do we avoid getting distracted by every new AI tool that goes viral?
Yes, I mean, I would say that distraction is only an issue if it keeps you from doing some other essential work that you're supposed to do, whether for your classes or etc. I don't think there's anything wrong with trying out an AI tool and playing with it. If there are, say, 20 new AI tools that go viral, as I said, you can set up some time each week or even each month to test out new AI tools. You could choose 10 of them that look kind of relevant, really see which ones genuinely help you. If there's one that doesn't seem to be used in industry very much, and then it takes a really long time to set up to learn because some of these can have a steep learning curve, then I'd maybe not recommend really trying to master it if it's taking away your time from other things. Um, Really experimentation, seeing which of these viral AI tools are really helping your work. And then if it's not helping, you don't have to use it or learn it just to say that you know more AI tools. So that's what I would say.
All right, thank you. So, is it really essential for us as students to know it? So, yeah. So, thank you for helping us understand that more. Now, in the next section of our conversation, we want to talk about strategy and positioning ourselves. Especially we as African students, of late, we have been seeing a lot of great initiatives around AI, internship opportunities, AI startup programs, um, a lot of pitch competitions where students are asked to use AI to solve a particular problem in a domain. For example, healthcare are great in all these things. So, for students in our part of the world, how do you think we should look at these opportunities differently? These AI opportunities from the normal narrative of going to pitch the idea, building a particular model or website or a chatbot, then you get the funding. People don't go on with the startups, others do. Along the way, they might be successful or not. How should we really look at or think differently about AI opportunities?
Mm. Yeah, I mean, in terms of what opportunities does AI create? because AI can really compress timelines, if you are a startup founder, you don't need to now hire a team of engineers because AI can do a lot of that work. And this is really optimistic for individuals who have an idea, who have a vision, but don't necessarily want to hire or work with a full-on team of engineers. It can really lower the barrier of entry for startups. And so, as predicted, I really see a lot of startups booming right now. I think that this trend of startup growth is definitely going to continue. That being said, if you are interested in starting a startup, I would you still have to follow the rules of what makes a startup good. Like AI does not exempt you from those rules. And the rules would be, does it solve a real pain point of who your target audience is? And if you're coming up with a startup to say help VCs filter inbound deals or something like that was one startup idea I had, which I decided not to pursue because I pursued other stuff. But if that were your startup idea, you'd want to make sure that no one's already doing it. You'd want to still talk to actual VCs. AI doesn't mean that you can get out of, say, customer discovery. You'd still want to follow all of the general principles. Although I do really feel optimistic about startup growth, particularly with these trends. And then if students start early with pursuing startups, then they can be at a time where they perhaps have secured funding once they've graduated. And it's better to start a startup at a time where you aren't necessarily looking for a job or you don't absolutely need a job, perhaps while you're still a student.
Right, right. Now, do you believe remote AI work will continue expanding globally? I think due to the COVID pandemic, now we've been seeing remote work quite promising. But do you foresee this is also in our AI future we are building?
Yeah, so I would definitely say that remote AI work will continue expanding because AI is not at the point where it has fully caught up with the frontier of human reasoning in a lot of domains. I think AI can do a lot of basic tasks and everyday tasks in people's jobs, but say, does AI understand the legal code in this particular country or region of the world? Well, these AI companies might need human experts to train these models. One thing that I would be very careful of is ensuring the ethics of each AI training posting, like ensuring, like, let's say a student has to review some sort of spam. Well, there have been terrible reports lately of certain tech companies hiring remote workers to flag images of spam, even terrible things, so that the users of the platforms don't see them. And this can have really devastating psychological effects for the
Yeah.
workers
Yeah.
who are doing this. And I would be very careful to ensure that each opportunity isn't something that's could be potentially harmful or something like that. If it's something relatively harmless, like training AI to solve finance models, and that's really cool. But I would just be very careful about what the task entails every time you see a new opportunity.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Now, as a student, how can a student build a strong AI narrative in their CV or resume without working at a big, in quote, big tech company?
Mhm. Yes. Yeah. So you definitely don't need to work at a big tech company to build a strong AI narrative. I would say that anytime you mention an AI tool, say what it helped you do and come up with an example where the AI helped you solve something. Like you could say, I used X AI tool to ship this product faster or improve speed of shipping by X% by using this AI tool or something like that. If you list a bunch of AI tools in the skills section, especially if you list 10 of them, well, that could just look like superfluous fluff because people reading your resume won't necessarily know how you used each one. Also, if it's a lesser known AI tool, um, you might want to specify what it is, like use the AI tool blah, 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 which does blah, blah, blah to do X, or in that format. And listing these AI tools and then having a bullet at your resume above saying something like proficient in using AI tools to optimize workflows, that can be a big plus. I would also say that being the AI tool person isn't necessarily a good personal brand in of itself unless you are extremely proficient in it and you like developed an organization to help students say use AI tools. Unless you're that deep into that space, I would not use learning AI tools as a substitute for another thing you want to say. Like, for instance, you're an expert on climate or you're an expert on engineering. So that's what I would say.
All right. All right. Because it was very important because for we in our world, sometimes we don't get opportunity to work at a big company. So wanted to really know how we can position ourselves to create that great AI narrative. So thank you for helping us on that. Now, so what signals do employers actually look for when hiring early career AI talent in our age today?
Hmm. Yeah, what signals do they look for? I mean, I would really say that previous experience working with AI tools is a good signal. And so if you have not had a job yet, um, do you have you used AI tools in a project? So it's really that evidence of prior exposure to it. Um, Also, certain analytical skills tend to still be useful. Like, say it's a data scientist slash AI role. Well, you still want to learn the basic principles of data science. And if it's a position where you're doing, say, causal inference, then perhaps are there ways that AI helps you with causal inference? Or is there a way to do causal inference on data generated by AI? And what caveats would you run into when contrasting with the typical approaches? And so if the position is something like AI engineer, AI and machine learning, something of that nature, think about how the job function evolved due to AI, but then think about what core skills remained, and then how AI can help enhance those particular skills. And so employers look for that. Another thing that they look for, and this is common whether it's AI related or not, is some referral or previous connection with you. And if you put in a resume, it can get lost in a pile of thousands. I would say that with the AI labs themselves, now that talent is in demand, unlike full-time jobs these days. But in any case, it is best to have a referral, get to know some contact, and that's what I had said about the networking previously.
All right. All right. So networking once again, and then solidifying our AI skills. Now, the final part of our conversation, we want to look at the future, right? The future of AI talent or the future of AI-driven labor market. Over the next 5 to 10 years, that's in the next 5 to 10 years, what types of AI roles do you expect to grow?
Yeah, I mean, this is quite an interesting question. There is now some talk about coming up with ecosystems of AI agents that can manage themselves because nowadays we have humans managing the AI. But I think one thing of the future is going to be an AI managing an AI. So I think roles where individuals oversee a particular ecosystem of AI agents, that is one that I project will grow. Another one that I project will grow is humans that check AI output when AI is particularly messy. There have now been stories of organizations relying too much on AI, and sometimes when that is done, AI can wipe out entire folders, can do certain things that the human didn't necessarily intend to do. So I definitely expect that some roles for people who oversee the AI, ensure its accuracy, those are likely to continue growing. And there might be some that we can't even predict yet. I would stay ahead of company news and trends, look at job postings to see some of these roles. People have even speculated roles such as AI workplace psychologist or AI ethicist. And those roles that are more humanities oriented, those could grow as well.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And these, that means that people are going to build more AI chatbots, more AI personal assistants
Yes.
to be doing these type of work. Now, I want to find out, will AI reduce demand for junior talent? Because for some of us, we feel like if AI is replacing the routine tasks, then simply we are saying that there could be a change to what junior roles might look like. What is your perception of this?
Yes, I mean, I would really stay ahead of where the trends are and where the talent is moving. In a lot of industries, such as tech, I think that that fear is very much justified. Um, People might say, oh, well, students need to upskill. And instead of upskilling and then thinking that chasing new trends is going to help you find a role in tech that's really scarce now, I think being able to pivot and move industries is the more valuable skill. I think that there are roles in hospitality that are still relatively open, like for entry-level talent. And I would really stop focusing so much on the industries that are getting all of the media attention. I would look at, say, labor market charts. I would look at job postings to really see where the junior talent is moving. And with certain industries, they're always going to need junior talent. Like, say, construction, they might need engineers, and AI is not going to get rid of that anytime soon. I would say that startups will definitely demand, as I've said, startups are booming. So, startups will start demanding junior talent if they haven't already outsourced something to AI. So, junior talent that is able to work with AI to make the startup's process more efficient, I believe that that will be in demand. One difference between now and 5 years ago is that demand can be harder to see. Where 5 years ago you would see a job posting, it would be highly likely that a real human would read it. But today you might actually have to reach out to these startups yourself and email, like, say, the founder of the startup or message them over LinkedIn saying, hey, I can help you do this, instead of saying, I'm looking for a job, because then that can make you look sort of like they have to serve you rather than you serving them. You frame it in terms of skills. So here's what I can contribute. Here's how I can add value. Here's how I can make this process easier for you. And so you create the demand for yourself. Um, and I definitely see those opportunities at startups as well as these overlooked industries growing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Want to finally conclude with our last question. Now, want to find out what students should start doing now that you believe it will compound over time and help the student in the long run.
Yes. So I've already covered a lot of it. I've covered the networking. I've covered the not being shy to reach out, which has to do with the networking. I've covered learning and AI tools that genuinely make a process faster and easier. I've covered personal branding a little bit, though I'll delve a little bit more into this personal branding. I would really I would really focus on these skills and ensuring that you very clearly communicate, say, what you do and who you help, um, or who your content is useful for. And by focusing on posting on social media, I would definitely recommend LinkedIn, as I've said, for professional posts. Other platforms such as Substack, writing like long form articles, that is a skill that can be valuable because, like with the Honest Economist, if people want to know how I think about something or how I think about the world, then they can refer to my articles and they get to know much more about me as an intellect than if they just see that I'm some random PhD student at Princeton University. So learning those skills and then in everything, and you can have your own private accounts with your friends where you post selfies, maybe more goofy stuff, but for LinkedIn and professional social media, I'd recommend learning the skill of writing a post saying, who do you want to see this post? What do you offer them? What value do they gain by reading the post? Um, so really learning that skill of writing, of communicating yourself, of telling people what you do, all of that. It can be hard for students in a transition, like if they're still undecided on their major, but they can still get interested in a particular topic area. And as long as their narrative's fairly coherent, then, your interest can always evolve. You're never locked into a particular personal brand. But anyways, yes, this presenting yourself, this framing yourself is really so key because you can take two people who are equally talented, but the one who's able to frame themselves better will get a lot more opportunities.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Thank you so much, Miss Melissa. At this point, we want to hear from our audience, right? Do you have any question for Miss Melissa? Is there something bothering you? Is there something you want to share? Is there a question you have for her? And you can unmute and speak. If you'd also want to leave the message in the chat, you can kindly do so, and then I will read it to our speaker. Right. So please feel free to leave your message in the chat or unmute to speak. Whilst we are still waiting for your comments, we are also thanking Miss Melissa for her time. We know she will be graduating very soon, and we'll be calling her Dr. Melissa very soon. So we want to thank her so much for her time, for making time to have this conversation a lot. Today we have learned a lot about personal branding, while we should not be always too technical and also focus on networking as students. We have learned a lot about this AI stuff. And now we know what to actually learn and what matters as we are going ahead. So if you have any questions, you can unmute and then speak now.
Yes, thank you so much, Elvis. I'm so thrilled to give this talk and I welcome any questions. Okay, looks like I see a good amount. I see, how do you continue to develop the interest for data science as a beginner? Yeah, so I'll go ahead and answer that one. How you would continue to develop an interest for data science, I would strongly recommend data science courses online. And this course is $500, so it's a little bit more of an expensive investment. It's called Elite Data Science, and it focuses on teaching data science in a very practical and intuitive way that can be useful for industry applications. If you can't afford that $500, there are plenty of channels on YouTube, and I would do some searching around to really follow those channels. I would look at some intro to data science textbooks, make sure you really understand the concept in those, think about certain applications for those skill sets, and those are the next steps that I would take going forward.
Great, great, great. There's another question in the chat. I would want to read it for you. So somebody says, I think it's Park. Park is saying, thank you so much for the informative conversation, Melissa. My name is Ming Su, and I'm also a PhD candidate in economics. I'm curious about your prospect of PhD degree and the post-secondary education in this AI era.
Mm-hmm. Yes, that's very interesting. I mean, I would say that the economics PhD no longer guarantees access to these very promising jobs. This phenomenon. Yeah, so this phenomena has happened in the past year or so, where now major news sources are saying An econ PhD used to be a reliable path towards a really stable, high-paying job. That's not necessarily true anymore. And like that can be said for any career. So like anybody, econ PhDs now have to take initiative. So the last year before my PhD, I was really looking at the landscape of full-time companies, of startups, etc., and doing all of the steps that I had mentioned previously in this talk. If I were an econ PhD in 2017, I'd be able to trust that there would be a job for me, say at Amazon or Google, if I came from a top program, or somebody from any PhD program, if they applied to, a reasonable sample of jobs, it would be fairly easy for them to find a job. Same thing is happening with government jobs in the United States, say with the Federal Reserve. And now that there's a lot more competition, um, each each sector gets more compressed because even if one sector has more job growth, then it's also flooded with more competition as well. So I would definitely, as an econ PhD, realize that the econ PhD is not what it used to be in the past. Think about why you're doing it. Um, if your goal is not to obtain an academic career, I would seriously give it second thoughts. Ensure that it does reach your goals, does help you reach your goals. Um, Sometimes it can be useful for government, and that's what I would say about that question.
Great, great. I hope your question has been answered. And next, I think the name was Park. Yeah, Park. Yeah. Now, once, yeah, he has given a answer. Now, there was another question by Victor. Victor is saying, thank you for this question. And his name is Victor. He's asking, if you were mentoring one student from this room for the next 6 months, so from today's call, if you're mentoring one of us, what would you have them to focus on? That's a great question.
Yeah, so the main thing that I would help them to focus on is how to stand out among a sea of identical students. And it's not necessarily by working harder or grinding harder or putting in more hours. I would first get to know them, see what their areas of interest are. Like, let's say they really like agriculture or something like that. I would set up a plan with them to help them become an expert and differentiate themselves from other students who are also interested in similar topics. And now that once they picked an area of interest, I would encourage them to look right away for opportunities where they can demonstrate or develop that skill set even further. And what I would have them do is to network with individuals who work at these firms or organizations that relate to what they want to do. So if they were interested in agriculture, I would have them reach out to, look for relevant job postings, potentially reach out to people who work there. And then I would also encourage them to develop a distinct take on a particular issue. I think that now everyone is so caught up in signaling hype that it's actually very rare to come across a person where you can ask them a question and they can take a particular stance or say, I disagree, or say, here's what I would add. A lot of it is so much about signaling, about credentials. Like, I got an email from a student, or I actually get a lot of emails like these. And if people list their formal credentials, well, even if they're relatively impressive for their age or their academic stage, nothing about them is really distinguishable among a sea of many students and many requests. And so often, if somebody can make me think about a topic a little bit differently or question my assumptions a little bit, um, that makes them a lot more compelling. And so coming up with a way to not only develop skills, but also being compelling and magnetic in your area. Like, let's say there's a method in agriculture that is contributing to a certain amount of tons of food waste, and you have a strong opinion or take on what people should do differently, really forming these distinctive points of view that are yours in your area of interest. That's what I would strongly encourage people to do for the next 6 months. And then, as I've said before, helping that student really craft their profile, also working on language, like how they talk about themselves to other people, because a lot of students will kind of be very honest when they talk with others. Like it's okay to need advice, it's okay to need experience, but often they'll seem really doubtful and hesitant, like, oh, I don't have much experience in that. Instead, framing themselves like, how do I get experience, or I'm willing to learn. And so ensuring that every word they use to describe themselves, as long as it's still truthful, definitely signals that they're forward looking, that they're ready to learn, that they have something to contribute.
Yeah, yeah. And there's another question for you, Miss Melissa. It's from Gladys. Gladys is asking that what foundational concepts in AI remain stable even as tools change?
Yes. Yes, that's a very interesting question. I mean, I would say that AI is trained on a bunch of data, and the way that AI comes out with output is like this infinite dimensional graph of how similar one concept is to the next. And so if AI is matching a word with another word, it will look in space across trillions of previous examples about what is similar. So that concept of neural nets and so on, I'm still learning more about that myself. But if you're really interested in the inner workings, I would look at, say, the neural nets. I would um, look at Andrew Ng has a CS course that's open source from Stanford. So if you have a more advanced, like, machine learning background, I would highly recommend checking out that course because it is good for learning about some of these foundational concepts. The thing that's new is that within that infinite dimensional space, as people train AI models, more and more of these models are being fed with more data. So it will be interesting to see like what type of data will become more in demand to serve these goals of these foundational models.
Yeah. Thank you very much. And if you have any other questions, from Gladys, then Gladys is asking again, if you have to start from scratch today, knowing everything you know now, what would you learn deeply and what would you deliberately ignore? I think you had answered this today. Today I spoke about this. I asked you something around this. But again, you can make it short for her briefly.
Yeah, so if I had to start from zero today, I'm assuming that that means when I started my undergrad. Knowing everything I know now, what would I learn deeply and what would I deliberately ignore? In undergrad, I was very interested in maximizing my grades. I thought that having a high GPA would be a very strong differentiator. When pursuing an economics PhD, it is essential to have a high GPA, especially across econ and math courses. Um, so that was beneficial for my path. But if you're a student today, I would really be honest with yourself about how much time your coursework is eating up, because there can be certain concepts that are tested on tests and you still want to do fairly well. But I would say that gaining industry experience is going to be a lot more important than getting an A in a particular class. And so if there's a particular test coming up and you're still a little bit fuzzy on a concept, but the concept's a little bit more abstract and not industry related, being a little bit more cutthroat about your time. Like, okay, does this really help me serve my goals of doing well in industry, or is this a concept that I'll learn and then forget later? So I would really de-emphasize striving for straight A's above gaining industry experience. Yeah, so it looks like for now, that's all the questions in the chat. Let's see. Um, is software development a good field to venture into? I see that one. Um, It's hard to say what's a good field and what's a bad field because the answer can really vary. I would say that software development is going to be less and less in demand because now, as I've said, like startup teams now can use AI tools and vibe coding tools to be able to come up with these software platforms themselves. So that force could push it less in demand. Um, some startups do need like maybe one software engineer. Um, and that's what I said about developing a different take. So it's less about, oh, I learned software development, but is there any problem that you think you solve by learning software development that distinguishes you from all the other people who are interested in learning software development? And so I would really encourage you to look at a particular problem in industry where software development maybe is not being applied or where it could be applied better, and then focus your attention on that and then communicating why software development is necessary for an application.
Yeah. Hello.
Hello.
Yeah, I think my network broke down. Are there any other questions before we conclude the session today? Today, my audience have been very active, asking Miss Melissa so many questions. I am very grateful for your time. I think there are no questions now. So before we conclude, we want to, on behalf of Zindi, express our sincerest gratitude to Ms. Melissa Carleton for making time off her schedules to have this great conversation with us. I'm an ambassador for Zindi, and Zindi is Africa's largest data science community. Gladys, I've seen your question. Don't worry, I'll ask Ms. Melissa for you. Ms. Melissa, I think there's another question waiting for you. But at this point, I want to express my sincerest gratitude to you and talk about a little bit about Zindi. Zindi is Africa's largest data science community, and we are into training the next generation of data scientists by sharing opportunities, learning. We have a learning platform to help grow the next generation of African data scientists. So that's what we do as Zindi ambassadors. So we have sessions like this to let people know about AI, about data science, analytics, and what have you. So a big thank you to Miss Melissa again. To all our registered participants, I'll share the recording in the course of the week on my YouTube channel, and I'll send the link to you all. I'll also share a link of our WhatsApp platform where we have the Zindi Ghana community. So the whole country, we have a WhatsApp community where anytime any of us as ambassadors are hosting events, we do publicity there, and then you make time to join us for the session. A big thank you to Miss Melissa again, and then I want to share my screen a bit so that I'll read the question Gladys has before we conclude today's session. So Gladys has a last question for Miss Melissa. Gladys, please, would you like to unmute or you type it again? So
I see.
you have
Um,
seen it, yeah?
Yeah, which concepts in AI are invariant across model architectures? Yeah, I mean, well, first off, thank you so much, Elvis. I really enjoyed this talk, and I'm so grateful to you for inviting me for this session. And it also helped me clarify a lot of my own viewpoints towards AI, which was really helpful. In terms of concepts in AI that are invariant across model architectures, I mean, I would say learning the foundational skills of AI, starting with, say, these CS courses, thinking about neural nets like that is a concept that can be applied across all different architectures. In terms of an exhaustive list of concepts, I would also have to think about that more, and I'd be curious what your research would say on that as well. Um, if you're trying to get at what concepts are, seems like there's some echo or something. Yeah, if you're trying to get into some concepts of what foundational skills should you learn, regardless of the model architecture or how the model changes, I would really focus on, developing your skills in various advanced AI courses because that seems to be a strong area of interest for you. And then once you have that skill set, the expert basics, you become an expert on things like graphs, these core concepts, then you have the flexibility to apply them in a lot of different contexts.
For us, Miss Melissa, I think that's all for the questions. A big thank you to you, our audience, also for making time to join today's conversation. Next month, God willing, we'll have another talk on data science, on AI, and what we are doing at Zindi. A big thank you to you all once again, and we'll meet another time. Good evening slash afternoon from Ghana again, Miss Melissa, and then have a great, shall I say morning?
Yes, thank you very much, Elvis, and really a pleasure to give this talk to all of you, and best wishes to all of you in your future careers.